Today, Bryan Elsessor joins me to talk leadership, sales, and staying sane while driving results.
Welcome back to another episode of Purpose Driven Progress. I am your host, Jacob Hicks, as always. And today I am stoked for you to meet my guest. Today I'm joined by Bryan Elsessor, a dynamic sales leader with over 15 years of experience building and guiding high-performing teams. From scaling the New York market with the Yellow Pages to driving innovation in tech, Bryan has consistently delivered results while leading with purpose. He's currently helping influence a company that is scaling over $15 million in revenue. His approach to leadership blends a focus on sustainability, team empowerment, and delivering measurable impact. Can't wait for you guys to hear the insights that this man has. Bryan, welcome to the show.
My friend Jacob, thank you for having me, man. Thank you. I'm excited to chat, excited to go through everything. Let's rock and roll.
So I'm stoked to have you. So kind of talk me through like your beginnings in sales. I know you've been doing it for a long time. Started at Yellow Pages, right? So what was that like early on in your sales career?
It's funny. I get asked this question a lot. Yellow Pages was it was a real great way to cut your teeth in sales, right? Like this is like old school. I had to wear a shirt and tie to work every day. I remember my favorite story of Yellow Pages is like it's everyone in this company when I joined. So I started in Brookfield, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Milwaukee. I was responsible for the greater Milwaukee market. I had several we called it working the book because there were several Yellow Pages books that we were physically working. I had several books that I was working there. So not just the greater Milwaukee, but also down in Racine, Kenosha, Lake Geneva, which are like cool. If you know nothing about Wisconsin, Lake Geneva is like this really amazing vacation spot. So there's a lot going on in this area. Anyway, but spent a lot of time there, and everyone there at this company had been 20 years into their career. You know, they're
Lifers.
Really seasoned. They've all been at Yellow Pages for 20 years or more. You know, we're coming up against like companies like Valpak, and we're coming up against, you know, these different decks and all these different really interesting publishers, and everyone's using the Yellow Pages still in the Midwest at the time when I got started. So it was a unique place, but at the same time, you wanted to learn from the best. And when you're green in sales and you're trying to figure out how to make it work, the number one thing you're doing is you're going up to those sales reps, you know, and you're like, hey, teach me.
Yeah.
And they've been hearing that request from everyone, right? So there was this one guy named Pete. He's still around out there selling. But Pete was by far one of the most talented salespeople I had ever met, and I really wanted to learn from. And I remember going up to him for months saying, Pete, help me, man. I want to learn. Pete, teach me what you're doing, man. I want to know what you're doing. And he's pulling in these multi-million-dollar deals. He's pulling it. I'm sitting there like, how is he doing this? You know? And I finally, one day he looked at me and he's like, all right, you want me to help you? It's like, please help me. I had made a big deal. I had just closed the first, I think it was $5,000 a month deal. It was like a big deal for Yellow Pages. And so, you know, a lot of like internal publicity. And so I'm like, help me, man. I want to learn how you're doing this, you know? And he's like, all right, come see me tomorrow and I'll give you your first piece of advice. So I was all pumped up, right? Came in the next day. It's like, all right, Pete, I'm here. Like, I'm ready for my first piece of advice. Teach me. And he goes, all right, your shoes. You need to shine your shoes. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
All right, I guess.
that was the secret all this time. I just didn't have shine shoes. And but like what his real lesson was like, you always want to dress one level above your client, right?
Yeah.
You always want to be one level of professional above your client. And he always had these little tips and tricks. And then finally he started like one day really helping me carve and understand how to strategically work revenue, how to strategically work through a book of business and to grow it. And like, you know, I remember him telling me, he's like, you want to take all your losses up front, and then you want to sell those losses. You want to sell all of the new money you need to cover that. And then you have, you know, your gap, and you're going to work the rest of the year on covering that gap and growing. And if you do it early, you'll have a full year to then grow it versus like not taking your losses up front. And then you have too many misunderstandings of where your revenue is going to be. And like some of those early learnings were things that carried through all the way through to software. And so, yeah, man, Yellow Pages was a great time. There's so many amazing people that I had an opportunity to work with and learn from. And two of my favorite sales reps that I've ever worked with in my entire life. I got to work with there, and yeah, so it's amazing things.
So I really, really love that. And I love that story because I feel like everybody in sales, whether you're, inside sales, outside sales, retail sales, whatever, you've got to figure out how to manage your clientele and your book of business and how to make sure it's actually growing in a sustainable way. I'm curious though, because I've talked to a lot of salespeople in my time, and I feel like pretty much all of us have kind of like that trial by fire where you kind of get thrown in the deep end. Every sales role is like drinking from a fire hose, right? Do you feel like Yellow Pages was that for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it had a very high attrition rate, right? Like it was very cutthroat. If you weren't selling, you weren't going to be there very long. If you had multiple months of no sales, you were going to be fired. Like it was just kind of what it was. I remember my approach to it when I first got started was I told myself every day when I woke up that unless I performed that day, it was my last day at work.
Yeah.
And a little bit about me, I'm self-made, right? So everything that I have, I've worked my butt off for. No one ever I didn't have a silver spoon. No one gave it to me on a silver platter. I had to work for what I did. And so when I entered sales, I remember I had 2 degrees in music. There was no business background. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to stay out in the Midwest because my girlfriend was out there at the time, and she's now my wife. So there was this whole thing of like, I need to be with her, and I will do anything I can to make it so that I don't leave. And so and not to mention leaving meant I was moving back home to mom and dad. And after this point in my life, I'd already been living on my own for like 8 years. So there was really nothing worse to my ego that I could possibly do and have to move home. Yeah. So I was devoted to making anything work. I remember in the first few weeks I had of after training, which by the way, like we're talking 6 months of training prior to hitting the market. Like that doesn't exist anywhere these days,
it's
right?
like 2 weeks and get out there.
No, yeah, this is non-existent anywhere. Okay, so six months of training. I get out my book. I'm down in Lake Geneva. They shipped us down there. AT&T had all sorts of money to put the teams in places that they wanted to, put you. So I was down in Lake Geneva. I was at a really cool hotel. And I had to go up and down. Lake Geneva is about an hour and a half from Milwaukee. Anyway, so I'm there for like maybe a week and a half into working my first book. And that Friday I finally saw that I was going to close my first few deals. And sure enough, 2 days later, Friday came. And I wound up closing 3 deals that day. And I call my boss, who, by the way, is probably one of the best managers I've ever worked with. His name's Nick Graham. He's out in the Midwest. But by far, I call this guy. I go, Nick. He goes, yeah, what's up, man? I'm like, I closed 3 deals today, man. And deadpan. Not one. Like, there was no celebration in his voice. Deadpan goes, great, you're good at your job. And I was like,
yeah, you did what was expected of you. Good job. Way to go.
I guess I should tone down the enthusiasm is what you're saying. Got it. All right. So like I was learning like all these like robust lessons early, right? Like sell like you've sold before, like different things, like right out the gate. And it was, what was great is that because everyone was so tenured in sales methodology, at AT&T, the training that I got was world class. Class. I mean, AT&T even had an online platform with Harvard Business School that you could take online classes and certificates. It was part of their. You work with AT&T. Wow. We're partnered. You can take it. Like they had all this amazing training, and it was all available to the employees. They had continuation trainers. You could take a trainer with you into the field. They'd help you run the call. You could take your managers with you. They had internet sales managers because selling Google was a new thing. And that old, and so like it had all these different pieces, and I honestly credit it to so much of what I've been doing these days in terms of sales and enterprise sales and SaaS sales. It all comes from really understanding those early days of how to actually hold a business conversation when the business really depends upon what you're doing in your service.